Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's gaming news. And I'm not going to dilly-dally because there's a bunch of things to cover in one episode, and I'm really striving not to be more than a half an hour worth of time to cover any of these news pieces on a weekly basis. So, without further ado, let's get to the first thing, which is just something fun, and that is the original Angry Birds games are returning after they had been removed from sale. We are glad to see that Angry Birds is now back on storefronts, and it's going to be back on the App Store and the Google Play stores so that people can continue to play this beloved game. In a statement on its website, developer Rovio has announced that Angry Birds will once again be available on smartphones at some point in the future. The portion of the statement relating to the return of Angry Birds is below. What we want to say, though, is we hear you. There's a big outcry for getting back some of the older fan favorites, Angry Birds Classic, Angry Birds Seasons, etc. We also want to say we are working on it. We will find a way to bring these classic experiences back to you. It might take a while. Stay tuned. We will post updates. But we have something in the works. Many games in the Angry Bird franchise, including Angry Birds Classic and Angry Birds Seasons, were originally taken off storefronts in 2019 due to the challenges of consistently having to update new versions of the game within the fast-paced and continuous development of mobile technology. This means that the developers were unable to keep updating new versions of their older games in order to keep them on storefronts. So, as you can see, it was once again on the game store as of a couple of years ago, and people were enjoying the Angry Bird content. And then it was removed from the stores because they just could not keep up with the technology and the changes of coding in order to make that happen. And a lot of people give mobile games a lot of flack because, they're the lesser child in the gaming industry or whatever that happens to be. But the reality is that people are more mobile, people are more connected than they ever were before, and mobile gaming makes a lot of sense to a lot of game developers. And it's no shock that people have been trying to get into the mobile market more and more because it will generate a ton of profit, especially knowing that people tend to have their cards and stuff connected to their phones so they can buy things, upgrades, and stuff at a whim. So this just goes to show you that it's a smart business decision when you look at big corporations. So the next thing I want to talk about is something that I am extremely excited about, and that is Critical Role. The Legend of Vox Machina first look assembles Critical Role D&D crew in animated form. So some of you may remember there was a giant Kickstarter which the critters blew out of the park and ended up raising a couple $1 million to produce an animated short about some of the characters in Critical Role, and it was only meant to the goal was only a relatively small number in the grand scheme of things, and then they ended up raising several $1 million within a day or two maximum. It was ridiculous. And so they decided to take the idea of an animated sort of short and make it into a full series. So the story of Critical Role has a lot of heart. A group of voice actors who are also good friends launched a live stream show that doubled as a podcast so they could act out Dungeons & Dragons together. It got so popular that it's now becoming an animated series thanks to a successful Kickstarter campaign. On Wednesday, Amazon, which picked up the show, gave us a first look. The Legend of Vox Machina is based on the Critical Role's troupe's characters from the first season of the live show. As seen from left to right in the image below, Taliesin Jaffe as Gunslinger Percival de Rollo III, Ashley Johnson as Gnome Cleric Pike Trickfoot, Travis Willingham as Barbarian Grog Strongjaw, Sam Riegel as Gnome Bard Scanlan Shorthalt, Marisha Ray as Half-Elf Druid Keyleth, Liam O'Brien as Half-Elf Rogue Vaxildan, and Laura Bailey as Half-Elf Ranger Vexalia make up a group of heroes known as Vox Machina. The looks hail from Phil Barassa, known for his work on DC animation, including Young Justice, Batman Bad Blood, and Justice League. He now serves as lead character designer on The Legend of Vox Machina alongside animation studio Titmouse. Matthew Mercer, who serves as game master on the live stream, also returns for the animated series and executive produces with other actors. According to an official synopsis of the show, The Legend of Vox Machina follows a group of second-rate adventurers on a quest to save the realm from terrifying monsters and dark magical forces. Throughout the first season, our characters will face undead giants, overthrow a sinister necromancer, and confront a powerful curse that has taken root inside their own group. Through it all, they learn how to function as a team and discover they're much more than that. They're family. And that really just talks about the power of role playing and the power of having an incredibly good group of friends that you can sit together and play many sessions of Dungeons and Dragons and really feel connected to people who become your family essentially. And these are very important people, and I am so glad that Critical Role became a show that you could watch on Twitch of watching them play D&D, and it's wonderful because I started playing D&D when I was rather young, and so I'm very invested in Critical Role and other D&D style games or other tabletop games in general. So I can't wait to see what they've done for this series and how it turns out. It's exciting, and I can't wait to see the final product. So I just wanted to cover that in case any of you are D&D fans or Critical Role fans even. So the next topic that I'd like to cover is something less exciting. This is not a game that I have really spent any time looking at or anything, but there is definitely a lot of controversy surrounding this particular title. And no, it is not Cyberpunk, it is not Anthem or anything like that. It is Marvel's Avengers. And Paul Tassi was the first person to break the article that I noticed earlier in the week, which is that a certain section or a certain part of playing the game will actually show your IP address. Now, when this first broke, the patch had a bug that would show your gamer tag, the date and time, a bunch of other random numbers, and most significantly, your IP address on screen as a string of floating text that bounce from location to location as you play. Crystal Dynamics has already commented on this, but only said it's a string of text with no mention of IP addresses. Now, this was obviously very concerning because if you are planning on streaming the new Avengers update, absolutely do not. Do not even turn the game on after this patch streams, as I believe this shows up as soon as the main menu. Not that Avengers has some massive streaming community, but yeah, sure. There are probably hundreds, thousands of people who may have been planning to stream today's update, so this is a big deal. Obviously, that is massive concern, and whoever had that horrible oversight, it just goes to show you that while there is tangible good benefit from patching your game and including extra content and being able to deliver a fantastic game by addressing issues sort of on the fly, there are some real downfalls to pushing updates that will showcase a whole bunch of other errors and in this case showing off the IP address, is extremely bad. So on the 23rd, they tweeted the patch is 1.8 bytes, has been published and fixes the issue that was occurring on PlayStation 5 where sensitive information was displayed on screen. PlayStation 5 players are safe to stream now. Now, hopefully, this has resolved the issue. I have not seen other articles, if it is still true, that the patch has gone through and has removed that information, but it is kind of terrifying that in a world where more people are streaming and recording their video game content, that you could dox yourself accidentally because you went in to play the game or the patch the day it drops and suddenly have your IP address showing on screen. And that is just a terrifying thing to consider. Hopefully that doesn't happen again. I don't know what prompted that or why that was even included in the game, but I have some serious concerns for this particular developer, this particular game. What's to say that that isn't going to happen again in future? Like there's all kinds of implications with this specific story that I just don't like it, and I am extremely glad that it is not a title that I was particularly interested in. So the next thing that I would like to cover is just an interesting story. This was published on Tuesday through Kotaku, which is Bitcoin crackdown leads to cheaper graphics cards in China. So China has been a hub of Bitcoin mining for quite some time, but apparently this is changing with whatever measures that are covered in this article. So China's stricter measures against Bitcoin mining has led to lower prices online for graphics cards. And in Yunnan, the country's fourth largest Bitcoin producing province, authorities have been investigating illegal electrical power use tied to Bitcoin mining and are threatening to cut power to those involved in the practice. The SCMP reports it's the latest province to join the country's clampdown on crypto. In 2020, China made up 65% of Bitcoin's global hash rate. SCMP now reports that stricter measures towards Bitcoin are driving down the prices of graphics cards in China. Graphics cards aren't only used for gaming, but Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies as they provide the extra computer power needed in the computations necessary to mine digital currencies. As the Chinese government has been putting the squeeze on crypto, Sichuan province remained a holdout for mining operations. But as SCMP adds, Sichuan has called for all mining to cease, dashing the hopes of miners to take advantage of the province's hydropower. Now, miners are apparently looking at moving operations outside China to friendlier areas. That is kind of interesting because when you consider that in North America right now, it's been incredibly difficult to get graphics cards. Even not extremely good graphics cards are running double, triple, quadruple the normal amount. And we have a bit of a drought when it comes to being able to get graphics cards. And unfortunately, a lot of people have been experiencing various issues where they need to upgrade their graphics cards and can't because they're not available. So it's not just the price has skyrocketed because of the cryptocurrencies, but it's also much harder to find graphics cards because the part availability due to the pandemic has really caused a huge damper. So that is just one of those things that I'm curious to see what happens. I hope that they are not able to just farm the crap out of the extra power by just simply changing countries. And I kind of applaud China's efforts here because it will make things easier for the market to sort of bounce back after all of the difficulties. I don't know what's going to happen, but hopefully we see a shift because, as this article says here, for months now in North America, it's been seemingly difficult to get graphics cards for a handful of reasons. Last fall, for example, bots bought up a ton of NVIDIA RTX 3080 graphics cards. Then, a few months later, 40 boxes of said graphics cards, valued at around $340,000, were stolen from a warehouse in China. Prices have also been increasing in North America. Earlier this year, Kotaku reported that graphics cards had become more expensive in the US as temporary Chinese tariff waivers lapsed. At that time, there were examples of graphics cards like Asus RTX 3090s jumping from $1,800 to $1,979. COVID-19 and distribution issues also impacted the supply chain, causing a global chip shortage, impacting everything from PlayStation 5s to graphics cards. And as I said, this is kind of a big deal. I hope that they crack down more on this. I hope that we do see graphics card availability increase again so that people can get back into purchasing the things that they want. We'll see what happens in the future. If we could go 1 week without covering this topic, I would be really happy. In fact, more than 1 week at this point. I'm pretty sure we have covered Activision Blizzard at length in gaming news. Activision Blizzard shareholders reach consensus on Say on Pay plan. After a decision, Activision's shareholders have reached a consensus regarding the company's Say on Pay proposal. The board of directors has also seen mass re-elections across the company with an average of 96% of votes. The decision regarding Say on Pay was delayed initially after a complaint was lodged about misleading information surrounding the proposal. According to the company, that information was allegedly a swaying factor in whether or not shareholders would pass the compensation plan. This conversation is ongoing, especially in relation to Bobby Kotick's salary, the current chief executive officer, and how those profits are filtered going forward. So they explain what the Say on Pay is, which is a corporate term that essentially says a firm's shareholders can vote on the financial compensation for its executives. The topic of compensation at Activision Blizzard has been a hot topic, especially as the CEO's pay continues to be the highest in the business, even while the company experiences massive layoffs. Kotick had one of the biggest payouts in the industry the same year. Over 800 employees were laid off, and more layoffs followed suit over the course of the year. This caused some shareholders and investment groups to push back against the monetization practices and structure of Activision Blizzard, though the approval means that compensation plans go forward as planned based on shareholder feedback. While Activision Blizzard's Say on Pay isn't perfect, it is in a better state than it has been in previous years. And I kind of have to question that because he's still making hand over fist in terms of profit and bonuses, and especially since we have already shown he has not made the requirements to get some of those bonuses and continues to be under that value. And the fact that the shareholders get to vote on how much people get in terms of executives is a good thing, in my opinion. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens sort of going forward, whether or not they decide to finally get rid of Bobby Kotick because he is clearly not doing a good job. It's a little bit crazy. because you consider that with only 50% of votes cast in favor, the proposal nearly failed to receive majority support. It appears Activision did just enough arm twisting for the measure to pass, Varner told the site. Most importantly, keep in mind that say on pay votes in the 50% range are extremely rare. Less than 4% of companies in the broader Russell 3000 index receive support that low, and the average support for the say on pay proposal in the S&P 500 is 88.6%. Is crazy. It just, I don't know. I really don't like Activision Blizzard. They have done many terrible things over the last few years, and they have really gone down in the public favor, and maybe this is being impressed upon the shareholders of the company. And while I don't like to see big companies that used to be amazing fall, to gravel, this is something that really needs to change in the gaming industry. And I don't know any better way than to get rid of him and to change the practices of the company, because clearly what they're doing right now is just not it. The final thing that I want to talk about really quickly, as we just started the Steam sale, the Steam summer sale, is an interesting article that I came across through PC Games. And that is Steam adds more restrictions to prevent regional price abuse. Steam offers games at different prices in different regions in effort to make games cheaper in areas where people are generally less able to afford them. Of course, people have long been trying to skirt the system with VPNs for cheaper prices, and Valve has fought back with a number of restrictions to combat the practice. Now there's a limit to how often you can change Steam's account country. You can now only change the country associated with your Steam account once every 3 months, as SteamDB notes. That'll be a pain if you actually are changing countries more than quarterly, but I can't imagine that'll be an issue for too many of you out there. Either way, you'll still need to verify each country switch by making a purchase with a payment method from that country. That's another VPN fighting measure that Valve put into place a year ago. VPN usage is already against Steam's terms of service, so Valve is liable to ban anybody exploiting regional pricing, but it's certainly easier if they're able to stop you from trying it in the first place. So it's interesting that you consider the various implications of VPN. Again, it depends on what you're doing. If you're using a VPN because you're worried about being doxxed or your location being found, that is a valid and viable concern. And I definitely see the benefits of having a VPN in those particular situations. If you are using a VPN, however, to circumvent country restrictions and gain access to restricted material, possibly harmful material, or to just game the system, then there's some problems and moral quandaries that sort of go along with that. And I understand Valve's reasoning behind doing this. The fact that people have been scummy and trying to get the cheapest way to get various things or to get things for free when they shouldn't be, that is kind of a dick move to all of the game developers who have worked their asses off. Like, it's one thing to sort of vote with your wallet and go, I am not going to buy your game because the company is scummy. It's a whole other thing to say, I love this game and I'm going to get it at a much cheaper price so that you don't get nearly as much profit. It just seems very shady to me. We're not made of tons of money and whatnot to buy all the games, but you could just reduce the amount of spending that you have on video games. I mean, that's always a thing too. That's all I've got for you this week. I hope you've enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for continuing to support me on Patreon. I post videos in the writing tier every Wednesday, and every Friday we do gaming news. And as an added benefit, once per month I do a Spotify playlist. And I also have started a Let's Play series where I've been playing Call of Cthulhu, and I've released that without any kind of monetary attachment to it. So definitely go check out the first episode of Call of Cthulhu on YouTube and on Patreon. It is there. And with that, I will see you in the next video.